You, the podcast where we explore purpose, passion, and the moments that truly matter. I'm James Dean, and each week I sit down with inspiring guests to uncover what drives them, inspires them, and what's important to them. What if the success everyone else sees comes at the cost of the person you've become? And how do you know when it's time to stop chasing achievement and start prioritizing your well-being? In this episode of What's Important to You, we explore mental health, authentic leadership, burnout, resilience, and the courage it takes to ask for help. It's a powerful conversation about breaking free from toxic environments, discovering true purpose, and why your future should never be held hostage by your past. Today, we find out what's important to Brian Kennedy. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, James. Thanks a million for having me. I've been following you from afar, and I love your podcast. So thanks a million for you accepting me and my request to join you. So I very much appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. That's really appreciated. Well, we're going to dive straight in, Brian. So with the first question, which as always, Brian, what's important to you?
Yeah, everybody acts surprised when you ask that question, don't they? And tell you what a great question, and it is, and it gets you really thinking, But first and foremost for me, it's my wife and my children, right? That's the first thing, right? At the end of the day, that's what it's all about for me, and they keep me grounded. They tell me when I'm getting a bit too big-headed and whatever it might be, and success in life, to me, it doesn't mean an awful lot if you don't have somebody to kind of share it with, right? And, secondly, and I won't say it's a close second, but it's a second, right? It's kind of like what I do as a coach now. I am absolutely passionate about helping people, men in particular, around people that are working under pressure, their mental health, spending their lives that they feel that they have to carry every single burden on their own, because I lived that, right? And I know now what's kind of like, what's better, what you can have a better life, right? And you can learn from somebody who has lived it. And if you can recognize yourself in my story, well then, great, right? And that's why I wrote my book, The Bulletproof Banker. Not about theories, but the lessons that I learned through my own experiences of surviving 7 armed robberies in a banking career, and, coming back from that, not letting it affect me. So I'm passionate about men's mental health, and my daughter might say, but you're alienating 50% of the population. That's not my intent. In fact, I've coached lots of women who have the same issues, but us men, we find it so hard to ask for help. We really do. And, I'm just passionate to help them. So if you can not make the mistakes I made by listening to me, happy days.
Absolutely. Love it. So much obviously in that we're going to dive into more, but even just the first thing about being, saying there in relation to you specifically looking to help men in mental health, and the argument, okay, you might be, say, excluding so many people, excluding 50% or excluding women, but it's not in that regard, as you say, but it's because I think, and I've looked at this over the years in relation to if you're trying to be a coach or you're trying to set up a business or whatever this is, you have to be there has to be an element of laser focus in sense of the person that you want to be able to help. And it could be almost like a lot of people, this maybe yourself, that you're kind of, if I'd had that coach when I was in that situation, so you're kind of almost coaching what would be that person you were 10, 20, whatever number of years ago it was. And it's also, I think it's that thing of what you've got a certain perspective, but I think it's still a thing of, I still always you see the statistics so much as well when it comes to men. And I think, it's definitely from seeing more in the UK, but I think it's same in Ireland as well, in the sense of latest statistics that the biggest killer of men under 55 is still death by suicide. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's it's still such a important and prevalent thing. We need to keep the conversation going, and it's not even so much conversation. There is an element to it, but I think it's also, and hopefully we'll dive into more, is about yourself. It's people telling stories. It's and then learning from, as opposed to just it's when people listen and then maybe see themselves as so in someone else's story, they might then look for help. So
And that's exactly why I wrote the book, right? The
yeah, yeah.
Bulletproof Banker. And, we come across mentors, people that have, helped us, whatever. What is it that sets our personality from when we're young? What is it about us men? I mean, you go back to the beginning of time, right? We were the people who had to go out and forage and kill the animals and bring up on feed the people, all that kind of stuff, right? We had to keep everybody safe. That's just the reality, right? And that's in our DNA. That's
Mm,
in our amygdala. That's in our flight or fight. That's the part of our brain that has not evolved since the year dot. Okay. And this part of our head, this is when we use this, we can do anything. We can
mm,
do anything when we use the frontal lobe of our head. But the problem is this little guy back here, okay, where we get all our negative self talk, where all that comes from, that causes us to have all these limiting beliefs that we believe that we're not good enough, we can't do it, or we're going to
mm,
try and do it. Right. And it's what we say in here, okay, to ourselves, is not necessarily what people are saying outside about us.
mm,
I always say to people, kind of, nobody sees you the way you see yourself, right? You could
100%.
think you're useless, and somebody else is going, I wish I had his job
Mm,
because he's brilliant and whatever, as a leader or whatever. But I can tell you, James, that for 90 odd percent of my corporate career, people would have thought I'm a nice guy, I'm a good leader, and all that kind of stuff. And I would have been in turmoil
mm,
every single day. Right now,
wow.
I was working in a toxic environment and whatever. I'll give you a bit of an example of that,
Mm,
because when you feel like you're left on your own, right,
yeah.
then you end up what happened to me, which is being on your own, suffering mental exhaustion, and feeling that you have lost everything. And this guy in your head, who I call Cedric, by the way, is starting to tell you that, you've been found out. Right. So
Mm,
let's go back to the beginning for a second,
yeah.
can, right? So, I'm of an age now that sometimes when I go into the room, sometimes I'm the oldest person in the room, and I'm still 18 in my head, which will probably get me into trouble someday, right? Anyway, I love my wife. I'm 47 years with her. She's listening. I love you, sweetie. Right? So, but the thing is that my early educators, as a boy in a class, used to beat us when we didn't know the answer. Okay. And they would take us and put us onto the top of the class in front of all our peers, and they would line us up in the corner. Right. And then they might put you standing in the corner. So you're like, the dunce that's standing in the corner. Right. And then when you get emotional, they come over and they'll push you in the back and they go, what are you crying for? How are you going to be a man? What are you, a girl? Right. I mean, even the fact that they're saying, are you a girl is not fair to women. Right. But
Yeah.
that's what we were told. Right. Are you a girl? What are you doing? How are you going to be a man crying in the corner, not knowing what you're supposed to know? How are you going to look after a family? Right. This is like 7 and 8 years of age. Okay. 7 and 8 years of age.
Mm,
Right. This is what they're telling you. You get a question wrong and they hit you with a strap. Okay. So what do you do? Tell you what I did. I went, you know what? I am going to put this suit of armor on and I am not going to show any emotion and I'm going to make sure I know the answer.
mm,
And by the way, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to make you think I know the answer. Okay? Because if I go, sir, in the class, he's not going to ask me because he thinks I'm so desperate to give him the answer. He's going to ask James Dean, who
yeah.
doesn't know the answer, right? So what that did was that taught us, fear, guilt, and shame
Mm,
for not knowing what we're supposed to know as young boys who are being told this is what we must know for when we're going to be men, right?
mm,
Who do you talk to when you're crying in the corner? Nobody. You're gonna go home and say you got no, you're not. You're gonna stuff it in and you're gonna put it down. And I go into private school, secondary school, and it's even worse. It's worse, right? So what do? You become a really good soccer player. You become a really good rugby player. You get the not the affection, but
Yeah.
that gives you a break in the class because sometimes you're. I remember failing a maths exam and my rugby coach was my maths teacher, and my mother didn't let me play the next term in rugby. And the next exam, I got 100 out of 100, right? Because they wanted me back playing rugby.
Yeah.
But when you got the questions wrong, you got beaten. The same thing, only we're older now, and it's even more intense to tell you, you're going to be a man. You have to know the answers. You must do this, right? And that is in my head,
Yeah.
and I bring that into my corporate life. Okay. And in my corporate life, it didn't matter what job I got. My first job working in a factory was where's the where's the opportunity for promotion, right? I
Yeah.
work like a dog. I get a promotion within 6 months. The union are up in arms. There's fellas there years that never got a promotion, but I worked my ass off. 6 months, I get a promotion to manage a machine as a machine operator. Me with a spanner. Listen, I'm a disaster, right? Okay. But anyway, you give it a go, right? You
Yeah.
give it a go. Okay. But I knew working in a factory was not what my mother sent me to private school for. And that's no disrespect to the lads that were working
Yeah.
in the factory, right? And football got me a football trial in the UK with a team that was second in the old English second division at the time
Nice.
when I was 21, right? Because I was a different animal on the football pitch. I
Mm.
would find any way to pass James Dean on
Mm.
the pitch, right? By hook or by crook. I would score, I would play well, I would do whatever I had to do to win, right? That was me. My wife hated
Mm.
watching me playing football. I was a different animal. But you see, this is where my head was. That's what I was like in football.
Mm.
What I was like in my corporate career. Everywhere that I worked, I got promoted, right? Because I had to be successful. Why did I
Mm.
be successful? Because my early educators told me that's what men have to do because I have to look after my family. Yet
Mm.
my wife has her own career and I'm off in my head chasing success, chasing success, chasing. Well, what does success look like? I have absolutely no idea. All I know is I get a promotion and I'm on to the next one. I don't even
Yeah.
take moments to celebrate that I've been promoted. But let me tell you that while I'm in my head working in a bank, I'm I'm working in retail bank in the branches, and in the 90s it was a very difficult place to work in Ireland. It was very busy. Okay. There was a big drug problem and we had no bandit screens, and the places were getting robbed every single day of the week. Right.
Mm.
But I needed to be successful.
Yeah.
So I tell a story about one of the 7 armed robberies I was in, which is the guy has me by the safe and he's slamming my head into the safe. Okay. And he's telling me to open the safe. And I'm kind of going, it's very hard to open the safe when you're slamming my head into it, right? And I can smell his breath. I can smell the whiskey on his breath. I can feel his black balaclava against my face as he's slamming me into the thing. And I'm reaching back to try to get the key that was supposed to be at the side of the safe. Okay. And somebody hadn't put the key back where they were supposed to. It was on the other
Jeez.
side of the safe, right? There was safe was on a plinth.
Yeah.
Okay. And your man is slamming me into the safe. And everything goes slow motion, if you can
Mm.
imagine, right?
Mm.
And I'm thinking not about my wife or my child that I had at the time, right? Because we only had one kid at the time. That I'm not going to see them. That this guy, he's got a knife in the back of my neck and he's got a shotgun under my chin and he's slamming me into the safe, right? I'm not thinking about them.
Mm.
I am thinking, if I can stay calm in this situation, I'm going to be a pretty good bet for the next round of promotional opportunities to be a branch manager in this organization.
My God.
Okay. Now, that's a special kind of, this is what us men are like when we're chasing
Mm.
this and we're told that this is what we must be by our mentors and our leaders of whatever stage,
Mm.
right? And I open the safe and your man takes all the money and everything in a bang bang and they all leg it, right? But to not think of your wife and not think of your child at that
Mm.
point because you're so focused
Yeah.
on career, right? So I go for, promotion to be a branch manager for 5 times. And 5 times I don't get it. And even my peers are going, what the heck? What? Kennedy didn't get the job? What? Because I am such a good performer
Mm.
because that's where my head is, right? I'm meeting all the targets, I'm doing everything, whatever. They cannot understand how, even if they could put me working, managing the branch for 6 months when somebody was sick. And if the job came up full time, they wouldn't give it to me. And I could not understand it, right? I would go down to the church on Stephen's Green, throw myself in front of the statue of Jesus and go, please, will you listen to my prayers? What the freaking hell? What do I have to do?
Yeah.
Okay. Complete and utter turmoil, complete and utter kind of, low ebb, whatever. Okay. Roll on, couple of years. I go into head office. I meet a very good mentor who 40 years to this day, I still meet for coffee, right?
Mm.
Gave me my first opportunity to manage a team and to cut my teeth on operational management. I will be eternally grateful to Paul Marshall. I'll mention him. He's a saint.
Yeah.
He's a really nice guy, right? And I get an opportunity. Sorry, there's going to be a merger in the organization. And Paul says to me, Brian, that thing I wanted to do for you, that promotion, that's everything that you've worked for me. He says, it's not going to happen. These things are going to merge. We're all going to be screwed. And whatever way he said it to me, people are going to come in. There's not going to be many opportunities that we thought we'd have in our teams here because they're going to parachute somebody else in. So don't know what we're going to do, right? And I decided I would leave. And when I decided I would leave, my old regional manager from way back who didn't promote me, right, the 5 times I went for a job, wanted to see me. I got a message. So I go, okay. So I go out with a mate of mine out to his house and he's out of work sick with cancer. And we sit in his garden. He's got a beautiful garden. The sun is shining. His wife brought out some homemade lemonade. I tell the story like it was something out of Poirot. Okay.
Mm.
And he says to me, I want to apologize to you, Brian, all those years ago for not promoting you. It suited me to keep you where you were because you were so good at what you did. Right? Now, I am at my wit's end every time they don't give me a promotion.
Mm.
I'm in my head and I feel a failure. And Cedric is in my head saying, you're useless. You're never going to do this. Right? All the stuff that we men tell ourselves mentally.
Mm.
And you have people in your life who are using you for their benefits.
Mm.
And we don't have the self-awareness to see it because we're living our
Mm.
lives at 100 mile an hour because we're kind of chasing, and we
Mm.
can't see the reality, right? So when you can see the reality of somebody using you, you might go, whoa, hold on a sec now. What's the story here? I didn't have that perception.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went and I got myself another job managing 8 European countries for the #1 car rental company in the world and stuff, and used the operational management that I had learned from Paul and was very successful and managed all the complaints for this company across Europe for a couple of years. Okay. And honestly, one day I let a bit of stress get to me and I walked in and I resigned one day without telling my wife, without saying that, without even thinking about it. And I came home with no job to go to. They didn't want me to leave, but I felt ego here. You've made a
Mm.
decision. You've walked in. You've resigned. You got to live with it. And I had to go and find another job. Okay. But these are the things that we do when we aren't clear about what we want in our life.
Mm.
Okay? What is it that we are really looking for? Right? What is it that we're really looking for? And the stress gets to you and you allow this amygdala in the back of your head and this guy in your head to talk to you and talk you out of a
Mm.
really good job that you have. Okay.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting headhunted by 2 banks back into banking. Okay. Because some people knew about my previous
Yeah.
thing and I ended up going back into banking. And, you know, I worked for one bank. It was a fantastic environment to work in. It was a UK bank had bought an Irish company, James. The
Yeah.
Celtic Tiger is in full flow. But the thing was we had a great team.
Mm.
The environment was fantastic. It was really good, right? The UK let the Irish operation do what they were supposed to do, and the
mm,
management was the Irish management, and it was a really, really nice place, right? But the thing was, they got me cheap.
mm,
From a financial perspective, I'm sitting there and there's people earning lots of money more than me. I had left banking. I couldn't believe the salaries when I came back into it from what I had left a
mm,
few years previously. And somebody came knocking on the door and offered me a job. And I went, "Pff, there was no way I wanted to go to work for them, right? But I showed it to my boss. And to keep me, he gave me a 20 grand pay rise overnight because they valued me and they wanted me and they
yeah,
had me cheap. And I went, great, fantastic, brilliant, great. It was an environment that was really good. We spoke to each other, the management, we had a good group. We knew what we were doing. We had purpose, we had clear structure, we had knew how much money we wanted to lend. And I really enjoyed my time working for that organization. And then but I'm working my ass off, right? I'm still
mm,
working at 100 mile an hour because you can't lend money in an organization with the brokers going, James needs to be in this house on Friday and I need to get you this document and everything is right. It's very, very busy. It's 100
mm,
miles an hour. And and my father is dying, right? And he's got cancer and we go into hospital. And my dad, unfortunately, was an alcoholic, right? And hey, he loved me, he loved our family, but he couldn't help himself. He wasn't always. It sounds really strange to say he wasn't always an alcoholic. He was a
mm,
very good businessman, right? He had his own shops when we were younger, all that kind of stuff, and then he drove a taxi when he went into that, and he had too much. I believe he had too much time on his hands,
mm,
and he ended up falling into alcoholism worse than maybe what it would have been if he had a few drinks previously,
yeah,
right? So I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. He died and he didn't leave any hole in my life, which is a
mm,
hard thing to say and would
mm,
kill me if I thought that that was the situation with my children.
mm,
But here's the thing. Of all the people who would be sitting with my dad in the hospital when the doctor came and said, it's time to, Mr. Kennedy, bad news, it's time for palliative care and there's nothing else we can do for you. And it's delivered with such clinical,
mm,
no humanity, no nothing. I'm there sitting with my dad, hearing that my dad is going to die. I'm going to have to tell my mother and I'm going to have to tell my sisters, right? Of all the people to be sitting there at that time, it just happened to be me. And he pulls across the curtain and he goes off, right? And my father said to me, son, he said, he didn't say Brian, he said, son, if I had my time over, the things I would do differently. And I'm kind of going, that's really profound, James, isn't it?
mm,
Like you
mm,
would like to think that you would learn something from that.
mm,
Well, I came away from that and I lived my life at 100 miles an hour and I still did all the
same,
work. I buried my dad. I spoke at his funeral and I learned nothing from that. Okay.
mm,
And another bank came knocking on my door to offer me more money to come and work for them. And I went, this so happened to be somebody senior in the bank who had worked with me, who had worked with me and knew me from my very first job in banking and knew back to when they knew what I was like, right? Apart from the fact that they knew what I was like and what I was doing at that time, they just knew I could do a job for them.
mm,
And I'm kind of going 47. I don't know whether I'm looking to move into some other organization and have new bosses and prove myself again and all this kind
mm,
of stuff, right? And I am genuinely working my socks off. And I'm not at this point even really talking to anybody at home. It's work and work, work, right? So I'll go and meet this guy for coffee and he sells me the job. And I go, "Hmm, let me have a think about it." And at that time, my best friend, who was 46, was in hospital dying of cancer. Okay. This is a year after my dad died.
mm,
We're the same age. And I go in to see him and I'm sitting there and we're chatting. And we used to have great crack, right? We walked the beaches of Wexford together. We used to
mm,
eat 5 Big Macs after together. We'd have a competition, right? How many Big Macs you could eat when McDonald's was the only McDonald's in Ireland at the
easy,
time was on Grafton Street, right? And we were tight, okay? I'm sitting there asking him, "Do you think I should take this job in this bank?" Now, where's my self awareness?
Mm.
There's a chap coming to the end of his life now. He was great. It's just me kind of saying, "Where's my self awareness?" At that point, there wasn't anything strange about the conversation when we were having it, but was it an
Yeah.
appropriate conversation to have when you're talking to your pal who's dying? Well, hey, you know what? When you're so wrapped up in yourself and your career and trying to be successful and chasing stuff, this is what you do, right? Because you don't have the self awareness to look after other people and whatever. So,
Mm.
so he goes, "Take the job. You'll do it with your hands tied behind your back. You know you're a legend. You know exactly what you're doing. I know what you do. Blah blah. Take the job." Right. So I took the job, and I worked at the job, and everything was grand, but it was absolutely toxic environment.
Mm.
Irish bank. I'm working managing departments for two Irish banks that were being managed under one UK parent. Okay, all have both have their corporate values, both banks, right? But we're all working in the same building, and I'm managing the two. And the financial crash comes, okay, and the UK management come over, and they think that they can run an Irish bank better than the tight Irish
Yeah.
people that were running the bank, right? And you're meeting people for the first time, and they're not giving you really the time to understand what makes James Dean tick,
Yeah.
right? Are you a good leader? What's the story? They're just looking at your. Am I allowed to say this now? You're the
Yeah.
Sydney Paddies or something. I don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a cultural difference, right?
Yeah.
And when somebody is there saying, mentioning the mainland, right? Then
Mm.
our 800 years of colonialization, regardless of whether you're political or not, fucking comes, and
Comes out.
you're going to get pissed, right? And you're going to go, fucking, there's no need for
Yeah.
that. There's no need to bring up that, right?
Mm.
And we know what we're doing, and we know all the
Yeah.
banks are struggling, and we know that there's been a financial crash, and whatever. And you know, I'm running a department that's lending money still, but not so much, right? Because there's people that still have applications and mortgages, whatever. But
Mm.
the other side of it is you have your mortgage, and you want to jump into a fixed rate because interest rates are going fucking mad, right? And I'm working 84 hours a week, minimum.
Mm.
And I guess in my management team at our level, I'm probably not the only one, but I'm just going to tell you about me. I'm working 84 hours a week. I'm not talking to anybody at home. I have
Yeah.
a PA that's printing off emails from me and stuffing them in my bag, and I'm bringing them home, and I'm reading them while I'm having my dinner. If I'm lucky, I'm saying hello to my kids. I'm scribbling responses to these emails. There's 10 people kind of copied on an email. Every single one of them wants a piece of me, right? Every single one of them wants to give out if something isn't right, okay?
Yeah.
And my guys are the end of the chain to get stuff done for the customer. And the problem is, if there's five other people or departments involved in doing something and they haven't done what they're supposed to do, well, my guys have to pick up the slack, right?
Yeah.
So you can bring in as many new products as you like. You can bring in new things. And if the systems that we use, and we had 5 mortgage systems, legacy systems in New York, right, that could not handle the complexity of some of the products that were brought in. So we had spreadsheets
Yeah.
to manage very complex computations and whatever, right? You couldn't make it up, right? So I'm going, okay, there's all these letters that have to go out. Somebody sends them out wrong one time. I'm dragged into a room by some UK management. What the hell are you doing? What's the story here? They don't care that it's all mail merges or whatever. The central bank are in saying change this, change that, change the other, right? And it all has to be done manually, and I have to see every single letter that goes out. I'm managing 250 people, but I
Yeah.
have to see every single letter goes out and make sure that the computations are right. It's an impossibility, but I'm trying to do it. And
Yeah.
we're managing projects, but we're also looking after James Dean's mortgage and any queries he has. Right?
Yeah.
It's a complete and utter fucking right. It's
Shit. Yeah.
if you listen to anybody in operational management who's asked to do projects and the daily work, on customers' accounts, you will know it's not possible, right?
Madness.
Because it's just not, right? And I had been banging on about saying, take so many people from me. I'll give you these 14 people. They know the systems, they've got great experience, they're really good workers, and they'll sort out those projects, right? Historical legacy problems, right?
Mm,
And just leave me to manage the rest of the
mm,
people to do the daily stuff, right?
mm,
So someone rocks up to me at 3 o'clock one Friday afternoon. Great news, Brian, this English lady, with a very English accent. We're going to take the 14 people off you on Monday and we're going to start this project world and it's going to be great. And, we're going to get you 14 people from this employment agency. Okay, 14 people off the street that know nothing about mortgages that they're going to give me, right? Okay, that are going to have to train, that they're going to have to do stuff and
mm.
work. But it's very important, Brian, that, the service levels have to be kept up to date.
Same. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but right, something snapped in my
Mm,
head and I knew that I could have strangled that lady there and then. And I knew, hey, that's not me. What's the story? I needed to get out of there. And I I left the building. I drove home. I don't remember getting home. I remember pulling up outside my house. I remember coming into the house. I remember my wife looking at me going, Jesus, are you okay? Apparently I was just grey. I was just
yeah.
right. I don't remember driving home. And I sat on the chair and I said to her, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Mm,
Now, can you imagine coming home to, what I'm 50 at this stage, right?
mm,
And um, gosh, what am I, don't know, 25 years married at this point,
yeah.
in 25, 26 years married. And I'm saying something like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And my wife has no context.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She doesn't know what I'm talking about. Work, she doesn't know what I'm talking about. Marriage,
Yeah.
she doesn't know right? Okay. And I blurt out, okay, work, I can't, it's right. And she's going, I slept for 2 hours on the couch. I just went unconscious on the couch
Mm,
for 2 hours. She brought me to the doctor the next day. Doctor told me, you are completely mentally exhausted. You need to not answer the phone. You need to be away from a laptop. You need to just don't even watch the telly. I'm not allowed to do anything that can fire the receptors
mm,
in my brain because I am so all over the place, right? Oh, okay, right. So didn't want medication because the quick thing is to put you on SSRIs or whatever it
uh,
might be to kind of block.
yeah.
Okay, didn't want anything like that. Again, the fear of being my dad with alcoholism and all that, I just didn't want that, right? So Sunday was okay. Monday, my wife has gone to work and my kids are gone to school, and I'm sitting watching TV, and Jeremy Kyle is on the telly, right? I go, what a rubbish show. But anyway, I suppose it was
Yeah.
fun. And I'm sitting there and I just got this absolutely overwhelming feeling of I have been found out.
Mm,
All my words that I had said to myself over the years have been true. I'm not good enough. I was never good enough. I've been found out. You're useless, and I just cried like a baby. And that's not something that I did. I told you I had this
yeah.
huge armor. I didn't
Yeah.
show it. I didn't show it, right? And I cried like a baby and the snot ran and I could see myself from the ceiling
Mm,
looking at myself on the couch, right? Now, I like to think I'm a survivor. My twin sister died young, and I promised back in the day that I would live my life for both of us. And to my detriment, I realized at that point I had forgotten that,
mm,
right? In my 100 miles an hour chasing what's for
yeah.
success and not even understanding what success looks like. What is this? What is this all about? I have this nice house, whatever it might be. And I stood up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I, I genuinely, James, I did not recognize the person that I saw. I
Mm,
didn't know who that person was, right? When you get to that point, when you're at that low ebb, when you think you're losing everything, when you're at that dark place, right? It is very scary. And
Mm.
and I heard this voice telling me to make a cup of tea and go out into the garden. And I have a very nice garden with a pond and there's lots of birds and whatever. It's very much like the garden I went to at the time of Puro, where I was told, I'm sorry I didn't promote you all those years ago, right?
Mm.
I'd worked my ass off to get a house like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Subconsciously, and I have it, right? So I make a cup of tea, I go sit in the garden, and I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of, I don't know, I can't tell you where I am. I just feel I'm looking at my house, and I'm kind of going, I am going to lose everything. You know, I've got two investment properties, I've got my house, I've got three mortgages, I'm in a good job, I'm earning very good money, my
Mm.
wife's working, I got two beautiful kids, but I am feeling I'm going to lose everything because I am, you know, if I lose my job, if I give up, if I can't, you know, how am I going to pay for everything? What's the story? All right.
Everything.
It's all coming tumbling down, right? Who you got to talk to? Nobody. Right. So I'm sitting in the garden and this little robin comes and sits on the table beside me. And he's just looking at me. And I'm looking at this robin and he's jumping from the table to the top of the chair. There's a chair beside me to the top of the chair, back to the table, back to the chair. And he's just looking and he's nodding his head. And I'm actually intrigued by this. And, you know, I'll go and get the robin a biscuit. I'll feed the robin the biscuit, right? No, 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 no! Don't get the robin a biscuit. Don't. You'll frighten him. You'll frighten him. He won't come back. And right, okay. So the thing was, for the first time ever, at that point, I wasn't catastrophizing about the future. I wasn't worrying about the past. I wasn't thinking about where I was at that moment, right? But I was in the present moment,
Mm.
just me and that little bird,
Yeah.
right? And I can't show you, but I don't really can see that
Yeah,
on
see
my
that.
arm.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So that's my robin. It's
yeah,
tattooed on my arm. And it
yeah.
says, Your future needs you, not your past.
Mm.
Okay. And I have that tattooed on my arm because I need to have that tattooed on my arm. Because just
Yeah.
because you get through something doesn't mean everything is grand. You still have good
Yes.
days, bad days. You still have that thing that you learned when you were a kid about, you know,
Yeah.
as a man and all that kind of stuff, right? And and I and I kind of probably had a kind of a what you would call a spiritual kind of experience, if I put it
Yeah.
that way, in the garden, right? In that they say robins come to you that they might be somebody coming to help you,
Yeah.
right? And I have my twin sister who
Mm.
passed and whatever, right? And I like to think that that was her coming to help
Mm.
me to drag me out of it. But I'm lucky in that, you know, I decided there and then that if I can show that compassion for the robin by not getting up and moving the chair and
Mm.
frightening him to fly away to get him a biscuit, even though I wanted to feed him, could I not show a little bit of that compassion to myself?
Mm.
Actually, have I not done okay? I'm looking physically, right, where I am. Have I not done okay? Have I not got a decent job with good money? Is that not what I wanted? Is that not what success looked like? Am I not very blessed to have a beautiful wife and two perfect kids, right?
Mm.
Is that not what success
Mm.
is, even though I am in the throngs of the depths of a very dark place at that moment. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
saying to myself, you know what? Fuck them. Excuse my language. But
Yeah.
you know what? If you don't like me, I don't care. And I'm going to have to go back to work because I've got to work.
Yeah.
Okay. And I decided that, you know, when I go back to work, what other people think about me, I don't care. If they want to think I had a nervous breakdown, well, you know, that's their business. If they want to walk on eggshells around me, that's their business, right? Because part of the reason for that is because of the toxic environment that
Mm.
they led us to work in,
Yeah.
right? In the messages that came about how the bank was doing and what we had to do as the bank to bring it back to profitability and, you know, to drag the thing back from the depths of whatever, and everybody's working their socks off. But in reality, you're not being told the full truth about
Yeah.
the present situation, right? So I went back to work, and the first thing that I was put on was a disciplinary improvement thing, right? Because I had been more than 14 days out of work.
My God.
Oh my God. Like I just said, you know what, lads? Do your worst.
Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
your worst. Never before did I ever have anything that might have been disciplinary or a reason for
Yeah,
somebody to say I wasn't doing well or whatever it might be. And I just went, you know what? Do your worst. I don't care. I'm coming in here. I'm
yeah.
going to do a good job, whatever. And I did, and I continued working. I put a plan in place to be able to pay my 3 mortgages, to retire when I was 60, to be mortgage free by the time I was 58, to get to a situation where I can travel with my wife, everything being well, and, you know, my kids,
Mm,
look after my kids. Right now, in saying
yeah,
that, I love my kids dearly, right? But because of the way I lived my life at 100 miles an hour and their mother always being there for them as opposed to me,
mm,
even today, the first person they will ring will be mum.
of course.
I have to accept that. Now, that's not, it's not, I'm not saying that as a slight on me or whatever it might be. But what I'm saying is, you know, life is strange because you learn things as you go along. You don't just kind of go, "Oh, Dad's back, and since he's
Yeah.
50, and the last 16 years have been great, and he's built a relationship with us, and I have great crack with him, and I'm the dad now. I'm not just this guy that was working all the years or whatever." But they still ring mum first because mum was there at the times when really I should have been there as well.
Yeah.
But I was in my head trying to build a career, even though my wife had a career. So I'm doing nothing to help her in her career, by the way, right? She's
Mm,
still going to work and having her career and bringing the kids to the creche and school and whatever. And I'm
yeah.
getting up and falling into work, working 84 hours a week, right? I'm worrying about financially, I'm worrying about mortgages, and I'm worrying about all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm not saying anything about that at home because
Mm,
we don't
yeah,
do that as men. We
yeah.
we feel like we have to hold the weight. We have to
Mm,
carry that whole weight, right? So, you know, I'm a guy with a good faith, right? I've had that spiritual experience in the back garden. I read the Word of God in my local church occasionally, right? I have on my other arm, if you can see that there's 16, which is Psalm 16 tattooed on my arm, right? Which I decided that when I allowed to say when I got my act together, which is very hard on myself, but when I
mm,
realized what I was doing and I had went for some counseling and stuff, I needed to share what was going on, right? So I would talk to my wife, I would talk to my kids, right? But I needed something higher. I needed to believe, and I always believed in something higher that could help me carry the weight,
mm,
right? And Psalm 16, if you read it, is all about, God or Jesus helping us carry the weight and keeping us on the right path in life so that we can have the life that we dream of. Right now,
mm,
not everybody is religious, right? So I
yeah.
accept that. I'm just kind of going, you know what? If you can slow down in life, you can be a bit mindful, you can actually understand what you want out of life. And as men, we can be not like me, where I'm telling you 95% of my corporate career was just absolute torture in my head every day that I was working. Yes, if you talk to any of my work colleagues, they'll say to you, Jesus, you hid that well when they read my book.
Yeah,
I had no idea you were in
yeah.
your head like that, or you went through that, or whatever it might be. I We knew you were busy. We knew the pressure was horrendous, but to the extent that you're in this dark place when you were sick,
Mm,
no idea, right? So for me, I have this, the true Brian came out, right?
yeah.
What does success look like? Okay, the suit of armor came off, so I could be more vulnerable and talk to people. I was more in tune with the people who I had to manage in the bank. Okay.
Mm,
Give you an example, James. Some of the ladies in the teams that I would have managed would have been of an age where they were probably starting to struggle with menopause before I had my breakdown, I, as a manager, as a man, not a clue. Not a clue. Right? If I saw somebody sitting there with a fan at their desk and right, okay. But I was more in tune with the people that I was managing now, right? Don't get me wrong, we all had to, we all worked under a bit of pressure. We all still had to deliver, right? But actually, I, my emotional intelligence as a leader was streets ahead of people who were around me,
Yeah.
right? To the point that I would point out when they bring in new leadership courses for people, I go, where's the emotional intelligence in this,
Yeah.
right? I've got a 300-page manual on the latest yoke that was brought into the bank before I left in 2020, right? And there is one page in it, one page, and it's not even a full page, that would even hint at emotional intelligence and really thinking about what's going on with the people in your team, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to having difficult conversations,
Yeah.
organizing one-to-ones,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
performance related, this, that, and the other, getting the
Yeah.
numbers done and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right? But i- what I'm trying to get across is like I've had, I have a really good life and I've had a good life,
Yeah.
right? But if I look back at, well, I'm 66 in September,
Yeah.
my torture in my head didn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for you, anybody your age, working in a good job, working under pressure, there's nobody saying there's not going to be pressure. There's
No.
nobody saying, whatever. But working in a toxic environment and working in a toxic culture, right?
Mm.
Working at 100 miles an hour, not being clear about where you're going or what you want to do, needs you to kind of say, hold on a second. I don't need a Robin experience that Brian Kennedy had in the garden
Mm.
to slow down, be in the moment, recognize that I'm bloody good at what I do. And this asshole over here is not going to continue wrecking my life over numbers in the company because they're
Mm.
not managing me correctly. Or this company this organization that I work for really doesn't walk the talk that they say
Mm.
when they look at their values and their culture and wherever. And you kind of go, well, how are we going to call that out? How are we going to call out the bully who's, you know, who's there on a 5-year contract just to meet to
The
change the
numbers.
work so they can get their bonus at the end. And when they're gone, everybody has to clear up the carnage that they've caused, right?
Yeah.
So where are you as a man that you can kind of go, this is who I am. This is what I expect. This is what I want. This is what my future to want. This is how I want to look after my family, right? This is the help that I need. Who am
Mm.
I going to talk to? Am I going to talk to James Dean, coach? Or I'm going to talk to Brian Kennedy, coach? Who am I going to talk to that I can actually say, this is what's going on. What can I do to get myself out of this hole? Or what can I do to actually stay in this environment that's very stressful, where I get well paid, but you know what? I'm managing my stress because I
Yeah.
understand and I have the tools that somebody like you or me can give the person the tools to be able to manage that. And that's just as simple as if you're working for a red boss who just wants call me into the office and give me the numbers and don't talk to me
Mm.
about your dog and I don't want to know how your kid is. Just
Yeah.
tell me the numbers and then get the frigging hell out of my office, right? If you understand that that's what you're dealing with, fine.
You
You're
can
not
manage
gonna
that.
you're not gonna go, "He hates me," or "She hates me," or "They're not
Yeah.
interested in me," or whatever. You understand you're dealing with a corporate psychopath or whatever it might be, who doesn't blink and only wants to know the numbers.
Yeah.
But you can
I
stay
mean,
in your job
yeah, you can still manage it
and
and
you
you can
don't
still
give a
manage
shit because
yourself.
that's just the way they are. But I tell you what you won't do, you won't let them walk on you.
Yeah.
You won't let them walk on you. You will fight your corner in the correct way because you have the tools to be able to fight your corner. So you won't go home feeling shame and guilt because of the way somebody
Mm.
spoke to you. Oh, I feel useless. I need this job. I have to kind of do what they tell me or whatever. Yes, we have to do what we're supposed to do to do our job, but it doesn't have to kill us.
Yeah, just so obviously, thank you for sharing so much that what you did there, Brian.
Sorry,
Because
I was
obviously, it's
ranting
so
there, wasn't I?
but it was there were so many things and so many interesting things in a sense of the when you were talking, obviously going back, the in a sense of the way that you were yourself, going all the way back, as you say, from that child that is within the school, that sort of an imprint of how you know, as they're telling you at such a young age, this is what a man, quote unquote, is going to be like, and those almost those protections. You say that armor of like, well, you say I have to know everything, do everything, and because that's gonna if I do these things, I'm not going to get hit. If I do these things, I'm not going to get shamed. So it's literally just was embedded and indoctrinated into you in this behavior. And how do you shake that? Especially not even didn't even into adolescence, it became even more so. So all of these things as a way of, but it was the fact then that the how sort of deep it got into your own psyche in that sort of the chase or the achievement or the pursuit of achievement was so ingrained as a way of, I don't know if it was protecting yourself or a way of say, you know, seeing as success, that the examples you gave in that moment of being robbed for that time, that you're thinking about, well, this won't do me any harm for the promotion. You know what I mean? You know, even to have that cognizance to think at that moment in time, well, I should definitely get it this time. You know what I mean? That sort of, and then even when you've got to that point of, you know, from outside looking in at success within any sort of employment or industry, you know, whether it's status, level, subordinates, whatever it is, to still then think I'm not enough, isn't it? It's kind of heartbreaking because of what it and then what you were talking about, then when you then have that realization, and then how the other people and the environment that was created around it, that really kind of then almost kind of allowed that to perpetuate. You know what I mean? They kind of
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
stirred it even more. It's almost because they just wanted the numbers. They didn't give a shit really how you were feeling or what. It's the word that I also have, and I've seen this from other employments, my own sort of situations and things as well. Is that it's the lack of humanity. It's the you said about like emotional intelligence, but it's also as well like whether those other people have had whether just like that or whether they've had it themselves or this culture of, you know, just the success is the only thing is only monetary or the success is only in relation to the numbers, that people will just be either remove themselves or devoid themselves of just humanity of how and then in the most basic of forms of how you are personable with another person, how you
yeah,
talk to another person.
yeah,
It's quite it's and it's what's so I'm 20 years younger than yourself. So it's interesting. Now, my praise be to God, my schooling wasn't in any way to what you had to go through. Was it as progressive as maybe people would think it would have been 20 years later? Maybe not as much. And there's still an element of shaming, but not in a physical way. And you know what I mean? Like, you know, that
yeah,
we
yeah,
didn't have
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
But there's still some, I can still remember some sort of hang ups from my school days and sense of being shamed and things in front of peers and things like that. There's still probably, if I was to think about it, that still have some sort of behavioral connotations to myself. So, but the work environment is quite incredible how it still in certain industries hasn't
No,
changed.
it hasn't changed. But
Really hasn't.
I'll tell you something. You run a bit, don't you?
I do, yeah, I do a
Yeah.
bit of triathlon and stuff as my
Okay.
sort of thing.
So here's a story, right? I came home from therapy one day, back in work, doing therapy,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, and I had told the therapist that I had this dream that I would like to run the Dublin Marathon. And when I played football, and I told you I'd been good enough to get a trial in England and
Mm.
all that kind of stuff, and I got to a final trial to play for Ireland youths back in the day, and I unfortunately didn't get the green jersey, but hey, you know. And and anyway, she said to me, "Well, that's your dream. Why don't you do it?" Right? And I went, "Oh, okay, okay." So I came home. It was end of April. Walked into the house. Great news, sweetie. I'm going to run the Dublin Marathon in October. Right. At that time, you could, you just had to apply
Yeah.
and everybody
Fly,
got in
yeah,
and
you're
all that
in.
kind of stuff. Right. And my wife, my biggest supporter, right, said to me, "What the what? Okay, you've just been diagnosed with mental exhaustion. You're going
Mm,
to therapy, and now you want to exhaust your body running marathons."
mm,
I can tell you, this is going to sound a bit cliche. Running saved my life.
yeah,
Okay, if you take it from any goal that you want to do in life, right, where you have to have a plan and all that kind of stuff, right, where, okay, I had to have a dream. The dream was to run the Dublin Marathon, and that became a goal. And then I had to have a plan. The plan was you had a 12-week running plan, and then I had to buy the gear, and then I had to step out the door, right? I had to get the first mile in, right? That's the action. We had to stop pontificating, just go and do it,
yes.
right? So I did it. And I know you've seen tattoos on my arms. I have some on my legs from doing marathons and stuff, right? So did a Dublin Marathon, went on to do the Connemara Ultra Marathon. So I don't know if you've never done that one, James.
I've not done the ultra, no, no,
Do
but
that,
that's a
63
yeah,
kilometers, right?
yeah, yeah.
I did it twice, and I think the second time I did it, I was really in pain because I've ended up having to have a hip replacement, right?
Jeez.
And to all those people who think, it saves you right for all that running, it is not because of the
Nothing to do with
running.
the running.
Okay. Right. Although it might be. You never. Well, I firmly believe that all the stress that I had over the years and everything
Yeah,
has manifested itself through one part of my body, which ended up being my left hip. And I'm lucky it
yeah.
wasn't, a heart attack or anything
Hard
like
to
that, right?
yeah,
But here's the deal. 5 years after I'd run my first Dublin Marathon and I had met the robin in the garden and I had gone for therapy and I'm back in work and I've boxed off what I thought a lot of things about me and I'm feeling great and I'm talking to my kids and everything like that. I'm coming down to the final straight of the ultra marathon, right? And I'm coming up to the finish line and you're absolutely knackered doing 63 kilometers. Although it
mm,
wasn't about time for me, it was a beautiful day down Connemara. I mean, it's absolutely stunning, right? When you get the weather, and I'm coming down, and I go through the line, and I could not tell you what I would do 5 yards from that line. I'm just coming. I'm just gonna go through the line and go.
mm,
Right. I go through that line, and I punch the air, and I say, "Dear Dad, I'm not useless." I screamed that. I couldn't tell you that was going to come 3 yards from the line. I couldn't tell you where that came from. I can tell you it came from my soul. I can tell you it came from my gut, right? Because my father used to tell me I was a bit of a mammy's boy. And at 4 o'clock in the morning of
mm,
my maths exam, when I did my leaving cert, he was sitting there drunk telling me I was a mammy's boy, right? But
yeah,
that's his disease. But I come back
yeah,
to my recovery and whatever, and here is something that's deep, 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 deep ingrained in us
mm,
as men.
yeah,
And it took the ultra marathon. And I knew when I did that, you know what, there was a there was a freedom, a
yeah,
true freedom that I felt, you know what? That's the last negative belief system that
mm,
I needed to kind of truly feel I am not the new Brian, the proper Brian, that this is what I should be as a man. This is, being happy and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
But you couldn't have told me 2 yards from
no,
that line that was going to come out, right? But running is phenomenal for
mm,
physical fitness, for mental fitness. There was five of us that used to go out running at lunchtime when I worked in the bank. I
yeah,
started that, right?
yeah,
And we would talk about different areas of the bank, and some days you'd have a great chat, you'd have a bitch and a moan and whatever, and everybody's working in different toxic environments. But you
yeah,
know what? We had somebody to talk to,
yeah,
we had somebody to vent to, and we did it through our running, and we
yeah,
had a laugh. And if somebody was really struggling, you'd reach out after the run and say, "I know you told me that while we were running. Do you want to have a coffee or something, and we'll have a chat?"
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Whereas we wouldn't have had somebody to talk like that.
yeah,
I mean, because look, at the end of the day, all we want in life is we want to be healthy, we want to have a sense of purpose, We want to have strong relationships with our better halves and the people that we have friendships with, right? And we want people around us to have a bit of integrity in the corporate life and in our private life, right?
Yeah.
That, is there anything, like, if you boil it down, is there anything else that somebody wants
Yeah.
that, that's then you're living a life of purpose, right? Because you have to have
Yeah.
something. You have to have something that gets you up in the morning. And if you, like I, at some point would have been sitting in the car park in the car for 10 minutes before you went in because you just dreaded going in,
Mm.
that's not a good place to be. And there are people to
No.
talk to about that,
Yeah.
because you don't want to be. I'm not saying I'm sitting here at, almost 66 going, what a waste. No,
No.
it's not. What I'm trying to say is it could have been bloody easier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It could have been easier. I've been successful despite Cedric in my head telling me
Yeah.
every bloody day I'm going to be found out and I'm not good enough and whatever. Right?
Mm.
And then with toxic bosses coming down, never finding the good things that your team did, always finding
Yeah.
something that was, if the call center's not answering calls fast enough, never mind that they're giving the people the proper answers,
Yeah.
right? If you're outside an SLA because the work that's coming into the team is almost 50% higher than your
Normal.
yeah, that you've enough people when you're constantly being told to do more with less, right? And every time you go into a room, somebody wants to kick the shit out of you. Okay, something's got to give.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. So
Absolutely.
all we need to do is just try to kind of look. Women are also now in senior positions.
Yeah.
How would I put this so I don't say it the wrong way? My mother brought me up to believe we were all equal. It
Yeah.
didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman going for a job, the best person got the job, right? Okay. So luckily now there's a lot of ladies getting opportunities to be in positions that was always, shall I say, old grey heterosexual men, right? Who
Yeah.
were only in it for themselves and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But James, I have to tell you, the day is gone where they should feel the need to put the trousers on that the men had on before them,
Yeah.
right?
I know
So
what you mean.
therefore, so therefore, we shouldn't be seeing the toxic
Yeah.
leadership coming from that cohort today that I see when I'm coaching people, right? Specifically when I coach women who report to women, right? Where it's worse, almost worse than what I experienced in some of my career with men,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, you got to put the hand back and try and bring somebody with you, not constantly see somebody who's good as a threat,
Yeah.
right? And I'm back down to the 300-page book of
Yeah.
leadership, right? Which is just it's just the same playbook
Yeah.
called different paragraphs, but isn't actually doing anything, as you said, about the humanity of leadership, the emotional, we can call it the emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
When I came back into work, if somebody said to me, my kid is sick, or somebody, whatever it might be, right? I'd say, do you need to go home? Go, 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 right? Okay. It was never, can you go for an hour and come back? Or
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
stay till four
Yeah.
o'clock and then go, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I also learned that when my son burnt my house down when he came home from, I never told you that actually,
No,
you know,
Jesus.
yeah, when he came home from university one day and cooked us dinner and didn't put the cooker off, right, properly.
Jesus.
So look,
Yeah.
we all
Happens.
have these things to face in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So if we can learn how we react,
Mm.
okay, to what the adversities that happen in our lives, right? By being more present, by being more aware, like the house is the house, that
Yeah. Yeah.
I, we'd a laugh about that, right? And we still slag my son over that now, and
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
geez, it's 13 years later, right? We still, it's a bit of a sore point for him, but like it's fun for us to kind of remind him about it. But at the end of the day, you kind of want to kind of go, people will make mistakes, right? The problem with me and my environment where I worked when I had a breakdown was mistakes were not acceptable, right? You had to be in your house on Friday, and if I didn't have all the documentation, then you couldn't be in your house on Friday.
Yeah.
If I let you into your house on Friday and I didn't have a document and then I wasn't going to get it, there were financial implications for the bank and for you, right? So therefore, mistakes were not allowed. They were, and that sounds really kind of weird, not acceptable. They weren't
Yeah. Yeah.
acceptable.
Yeah.
That's why I go into a room every day of the week and there was 4 or 5 people waiting to kick 7 shades of pink out of me
Yeah.
for the team,
It's
you know?
yeah, and it's such so much in again, so much interesting what you're saying. But the first thing when you're going back to when you're doing when you talk about the marathon, the ultra marathon, and what you said when you came across the line, that was incredibly powerful because I think that's, you know, because especially when you're talking about, working with men in particular, and even from not even from a, I would say, not even a negative, it's not a necessarily a negative stereotype when it comes to men, but being useful is almost fundamental. I think for everyone, you want to be useful for something. So to come out with saying the phrase that I'm not useless, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's, as you say, that could only come from something that you didn't even know expected. So I thought that was really powerful because I think that's like, if you were to break down a lot of people, but men in particular, that, because it could have been from a teacher, it could have been from a parent, it could have been from a coach, it could have been from one point they've been told they've been useless. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be that's a brutal word. You can take out
Yeah.
the really that could be really harsh.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a really powerful almost where you said it's like especially in the moment and quite an empowering statement, I think, when you
That
say it.
word useless may not have been used, but
Yeah,
it's
no, absolutely.
but it's what you heard. It's what you heard,
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
So the perception of the word is coming because of
Yeah.
how it's just been described. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're internalizing it in that way,
Right.
even though it's not directed. Yeah.
So here's another thing, right? So I would have been a kid. What am I going to be like as a dad, right?
Mm,
I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to say,
mm,
I loved my dad. Let me just say, I loved my dad.
yeah.
My dad had is a disease, right? Like any drug addict or whatever. But
Mm,
let me just say this, right? Because this is important for men if they're living their life like I was, right?
mm,
I don't want to be my dad. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be like my dad as a dad to my kids. I don't want to do to my family what my dad did to our family to traumatize me, my sisters, or whatever it might be, wherever. But here's the deal. And this was hard, and I had to learn this through my therapy. I had a to do list the length of my arm, and I'm working 84 hours a week. I'm not talking to my wife or whatever, right? Every time I got something off the to do list, I got a dopamine hit.
mm,
Whether I knew it or not, I got a dopamine hit. Would I have worked 90 hours a week to get the other thing off my to do list? Quite possibly, right? My father, when he had a drink, got a dopamine hit. What did he do? He'd have another drink, he'd get a dopamine hit. So what do I do? And it's very hard to kind of say this. I don't want to be my dad. But suddenly I realize I am doing to my family through my work what my father did to us through his drink, right? So I'm kind of going, I have fought all my life not to be like my dad. And here I am working 84 hours a week, not talking to my wife and my kids, doing exactly the same, getting the same dopamine hit, but through a corporate work, not sitting at a bar drinking beer.
yeah.
And that absolutely sickened me when I
Mm,
went that through and I had to be honest with myself about that,
yeah.
right? I had to be. And that was part of the reason why I kind of said, you know what? If my early mentors, taught me fear, shame, and guilt, then I have to take on board what I'm learning from this now and how that affected how my dopamine hits getting things off and working all those hours and, reluctantly going to school plays and being there just about on time and wherever it might be. What effect did that have on my kids? So I had to kind of learn after I was 50 to hug my kids, understand what they're doing, know what's going on in their life, and that's what we have to do, and we have to, and that's
Mm,
where self-awareness comes in. And look, if we can just help each other, James,
yeah,
that's all we can do.
yeah. Because this is the when you were the other one I wanted, it's really powerful actually what you just said. It's like the sharing of the fact that the thing was different in the sense of it wasn't alcohol, it was the work. But in some ways, the addictiveness or the whatever that thing, that the escape from whatever it was, or that finding meaning in this thing that was having a negative effect is the thing that you were that was keeping you going, but also the same thing that's making you sick and having the negative effect in the family. The point I wanted to say, and before I forget it, is when you were talking and again about before you left, and you got that 300-page document about whatever banking, and you say it's got so much still in it to do with emotional intelligence or personal sort of how you deal with people. What I find going to be interesting if it's because it's still sort of troping out this same way of approaching this sort of management style, if you want to call it. We've got a generation now. I said, like, when I went through my schooling, I was never in schooling when there was, when it was beyond where kids could get hit. But I still say there was still some, when I go back, some like, well, that wasn't exactly supportive environments in certain situations as well. I think obviously I've not got kids. I haven't had kids go through, I've got nieces and nephews that are going through school, and there's always this kind of like about young people that everyone wants to knock the next generation of young people, and like you were saying, but you were getting told, don't be soft, don't be a
Yeah, yeah,
girl.
yeah,
When
yeah,
do
yeah,
you know what I mean? And this nonsense that
yeah,
the younger generation is always soft and all this that which is complete bullshit in my because I always think when that argument is like, well, so you want to go back to when we were hitting them, or you want to send them up when they were
yeah,
getting worked at
yeah,
ages in
yeah,
horrible environments. So I don't, in awful conditions. So I don't think it's a really relevant argument. But the one thing now is with any young person or children going through school now is the fact that we have the tech that we have, the information we have available. I didn't come across, say, I knew a bit about sort of this side of the of life or work because my dad was a social worker. So I was exposed to just talking to him about stuff. But from a personal perspective, I was probably my 30s before I really got into sort of genuine into personal development, genuine into emotional intelligence. Always had, said maybe a little naturally, but really got into it. Young people are doing that so much younger. So there's going to be a point when they come to employment, and you're seeing it now with some young people who are like, they're just not going to put up with it
yeah,
because
yeah.
they'll
Good.
just go, exactly.
Yeah,
Because on the one hand, the posters are saying, we value this, we value that. As you come work for us, we'll get you this and the other.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The young person goes in and go, but you said you'd have all this stuff for me and you
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
And they're just going, oh, shut up and do the work. They're
yeah,
going to go,
yeah,
well, fuck you then, I'm off.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Or because
But
now
the
it's
other
also,
challenge, James, the other challenge is, right, is that you don't want to have a situation where, like, you're doing running and I'm doing running, right? Okay.
yeah,
And it's not a medal for participation, right?
no,
Do you know what I'm saying, right?
yeah,
So the thing is, what I don't want to happen is I don't want to see people being told in school, you're great. Everything is
not
good,
at all.
fantastic. And when
No,
you go into the workplace, all of a sudden some manager brings you into a room and tells you, what the hell was that? That's a shit piece of work, right? Now, there's a balance. There's a
completely.
balance. And I like the fact that people now will go into work and say exactly what you said. You have that value on the wall. And actually, I don't like the way you've spoken to me, right? Because they haven't been spoken to correctly,
Mm,
not because of, any woke thing or whatever. It's just that
no,
the person hasn't spoken to them with respect, right? Appropriately, then call it out. And I have fully supportive of that. But I wonder sometimes how prepared some people are when they come from university
100%.
into some of the workplaces. Now, toxic workplaces, yeah. Can you be prepared for it? Well, at least have a bit of an idea, right? Try and identify the red boss, the blue boss, the yellow boss, the green boss,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Because you need to understand what it is that you're dealing with. Because, there are the guys out there and the women, just say the guys, who will tell the bosses everything is great up here,
Yes.
but it's not, right?
Yeah.
And they're hiding everything. And then
Yes.
something blows up and we pay the price, not the boss, right? Okay. So there's all these different types of dangerous bosses out there that you have to have a bit of an idea that, they have your back and they're telling the truth about the projects you're working in and whether something's going to be delivered or not. Right. And you're not going to go into a room someday where everybody's been told you've been doing a great job. And then all of a sudden, actually, you know what? You're being made redundant on Friday.
We'll get through this last bit, but what made you think then, after this career in banking and financial services, that you wanted to then work into coaching?
I just saw too many men suffering, James, and I went
Yeah.
off and I qualified as a mental health coach, right? And I wanted to, I could coach anybody. Look, I could do career coaching as well, right? I do
Yeah.
career coaching as well, but the mental
Yeah.
health stuff where I'm helping people, listening to where they are and what they're doing, and if they've read my book at least, and I've read some stuff that I've put on LinkedIn, they kind of go, I think I'll go and talk to him
Mm,
because he's been there and he hasn't just got a master's. I don't mean a master. Do you know what I mean? He's not just gone
yeah.
to university and he's coaching because I
Yeah.
know we're all using the same tools and whatever it might be. But
Sure.
from an empathetic perspective, I actually I can see the difference between somebody who needs coaching and
Mm,
counseling, and
yeah.
there's a very thin line, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm very careful not to cross over into that,
Of
right?
course.
But I think because of what I've gone through and what I know about being in your head and I know about chasing success and not knowing what it looks like, that I can actually sit down with somebody and ask them those questions about, well,
Yeah.
what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Why are you looking for that big job? What is it, the
Mm,
money? Is it the car? Is it you want your mates to think you're great? Put your feet to the fire and be honest and
yeah.
say, because do you want to be miserable? Not everybody wants to be the CEO,
Mm,
right? And sometimes in corporate, when they do their 9 box matrix about, the people that are high performers and low performers, they box the people who just want to come in and do the job
yeah. Yeah.
as a low performer. And I'm kind of going, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
stop.
I
These
know.
people are as important as the people who want to be the CEO or the team leader or the manager or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Not everybody wants to be that. Give give them
Absolutely.
a break.
Yeah.
So I can just I that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give back.
Yeah.
So I do some voluntary work
Yeah.
as well, career wise for an organization. It's genuinely, James. I can earn money. I'm not shy about saying, if I'm talking to people and they want, there's a cost, right? But you know what? There's a cost to success in life.
Yeah. 100%.
How much do you want to pay? Because you know what? I could have paid for it with my family.
Yes.
My wife's a saint. I could have paid for it with, there's not many people that would put up with me not talking. I don't mean not talking to them, but you know what I mean? Like not being present
Yeah.
and, having 2 kids and leaving her to do everything and all that kind of stuff, right? There's not that many people out there, and we're 47 years together this year, right? It's a lifetime. I am truly, truly blessed. Okay. But the thing is, I've had to also look when I wrote the book about not only the stuff that I've told you about me, but the effect that that had on her
Yeah.
being alone with the kids and doing stuff while I'm in my head. That's a whole
Yeah.
different heartbreaking flipping thing,
Yeah.
because there's two sides of every coin. So we have
For
to be
sure.
mindful of that, right? But um in the corporate world it's kind of like, Jesus lads, can we just, you know, if you have that suit of armor on, if you don't have somebody to talk to, and most people have less than 3 people if they had the deepest, darkest secret in the world and you needed to tell somebody and you didn't want it to be on the internet, they say people have less than 3 people in their circle of friends that they could trust to do,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure some people don't have anybody. So that's where
Yeah.
I'm kind of going, you know what? I decided I couldn't carry the weight of everything that I've told you, right? And, I don't push it onto anybody else. I have some help here with my Samson, with Jesus helping me carry it, and that's me,
Yeah.
right? But
Love it.
coaching can help people identify it. understand
Yeah,
where the problems are coming from. What do they really want in life? What does success look like to them? Because, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be happy. And sometimes just being happy is the best barometer you can have of being successful.
absolutely. You've gone through a couple obviously that are on the that are tattooed onto yourself, but I am going to ask one of my final three questions, which is, what is there a quote or a phrase that's important to you?
Well, I've two, and I have them tattooed on my
Mm.
arms.
Yeah, yeah,
They can't get any closer, right? I've got the Robin, your future needs you, not your past,
yeah.
right? And I have over here, don't be pushed around by the fears in your mind, but be led by the dreams in your heart.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Why do you mark yourself, Brian? Jesus, I got people kind of going, God, you're 60 something and you got a fair number of
yeah,
tattoos there, Brian. And I'm kind of going, yeah, but they all mean something.
yeah, yeah.
Anybody that has a
Absolutely,
tattoo will tell you it means something. But look,
for sure.
I can have days where, I might feel guilty about the past, and, I look at that, or I might feel a bit down, and I'll look at that and I kind of going, you know what? My future needs me, not my past. The people
Yeah,
who didn't
yeah,
give me a promotion, whatever it is, I know who I am. Remind me who I am. Don't go back there, because that's our makeup. We tend this guy back here,
yeah,
this thing. He wants you back here. He wants you, right.
yeah,
And but being pushed around by the fears in your mind, it's kind of like, don't do this because, don't go there because, don't ask that question because, it's a silly question and you might look like an idiot and you find out that 20 people in the room want to ask the same question.
yeah.
Be led by the dreams in your heart. So, what dreams do we have? You and I have done running. At some point, that was a dream.
Mm,
I still know people, I don't know about you, I still know people who are still talking, 16 years after I started running,
oh yeah,
that are still talking about, oh, someday I'll run the Dublin Marathon. I don't
yeah, yeah.
judge them. I don't judge
No,
them. But what I am saying is, there'll never be a good time
yeah,
to kind of
absolutely.
to
Yeah,
do it. You just have
100%.
to kind of do
Get
it.
stuck in.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Who've been the biggest influences in your life?
Wow. So I have to say my mother was one, right?
Uh,
Um, of course, I have to say my dad because,
yeah,
you can kind of talk about the negatives with my dad and stuff like that.
yeah,
At the end of the day, how many times did I mention my dad in this and I didn't really
yeah,
mention my mother, right? But my
yeah,
mother was the biggest influence from a positive perspective, right?
yeah,
Who who would have always been my biggest supporter, right? And my wife being my biggest supporter now, if you like, right? But my mum
yeah,
would have been my biggest supporter, that any time I came home, having won competitions, medals, made a big deal of it. Now, she would not have a clue if I came home with two gold medals and a silver medal and a cup from the community games, right, one time.
yeah,
And what a big deal that was. It was just, oh, well done, son. That's great. A big hug, whatever it is. But actually, you know, that was a big deal. That was a big day for me. But
yeah,
I just went home and put them in the drawer. On to the next
yeah,
thing. On to the next thing,
yeah,
right? Um, but she taught me about equality, diversity before it was ever in vogue, to respect everybody, right? To see people as your equal, treat people right, open the door for a woman.
yeah,
Try and
yeah.
use your head, okay? But when she died in 2018, James, I have to tell you this.
Mm,
She taught me that when my time comes, I have no need to be afraid to die. I have no regrets. I have no secrets. I have no nothing. My kids know I love them. My wife knows I love them. It's just, I have my faith. The time is going to come. And, at the moment, as I sit here and I say to you, I will say she has taught me not to be afraid when that time comes. But there's also the other thing that people say, you never meet an atheist on their deathbed, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that's what she did. And then, I'm always eternally grateful to Paul Marshall back in the day, who gave me my first opportunity to manage people.
yeah,
Saw something in this young guy who had it tough in the branches, and gave him an opportunity when he asked for it to manage people. And he didn't know me from Adam at the time, right?
Yeah.
To set up the first call center from a bank back in the day, to manage their mortgage team, to interact with senior people that, would have interacted with him, to the point that we still meet
Yeah.
40 years later, and we have a bit
That's
of a
lovely.
laugh and stuff like that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
they've been the two, and obviously Martina, I'm
Yeah.
with my wife since she was 16 and I was 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
She can read me like a book, but
For
that's
sure.
that's a
Yeah.
blessing. That's a blessing and a curse, James. What can you do?
Yeah. 100%. Lovely. It's been absolutely wonderful to chat to you, Ryan, and hear your story and what you're doing now for men, which is beyond important. And I'm sure there's plenty of people, but men especially, who are still living the life that you were living, and who hopefully, if they hear or see this, that it might trigger something in them to, whether it be reach out to you, reach out to me, or reach out to anyone that might be able to assist them. I have one more final question though for you, which is, what's important for your future?
There's a couple of things really, right? One is, my remaining time with my beautiful wife, that I can spend as much time with her and travel while we have our health, and we can still do it. Okay. Because I think too many people leave it till, I'll do it when, I'll do it when, I'll do it when. Right. And yeah, I did a post recently about walking the talk, about don't wait until you retire to live your life.
Mm,
Right. And like last year, we've been in Spain, Lanzarote, Dubai, Australia, you know,
do
it's
it.
planned, it's
Yeah.
planned. Because that's what we want to do. I'd kind of like to think that, when the time comes, I've left the place. People, if they talk about me, would say some nice things about me. Obviously, there will be people who will say some horrible things, but majority of people might say nice things, which means that, you know, there's a mark that I've been on this earth for,
Yeah.
some period of time, and I've left a little bit of a mark, right, which I think is nice. And I think we should all try to leave that, as opposed to something negative that people would talk about.
Absolutely.
And I just want to continue to help men to have the lives that they deserve. And if women want to come and talk to me, that's great. But
Yeah.
because we're always in our head, and it's our makeup, and it's
Yeah.
where we came from back in the before the dinosaurs
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
that
Um,
that's it. That's it's pretty simple, isn't it? Really.
Absolutely. As I said, it's been wonderful to chat, Brian. Really has, and I've loved listening to you and share so much of yourself. I think it's been very powerful, and I think will be very impactful for a lot of people. I want to make sure there's other people who will continue to feel that impact. So we'll make sure links are in the show notes. But if you would like to give a shout out now where people can get your book, or where they can follow and connect with you online.
Well, you get the book, The Bulletproof Banker, um, Amazon. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, you can read what I write on LinkedIn under Brian Kennedy, and you can check out my website, bjkenomotivation.com. Didn't really
Yeah.
think through the name of it, did I really? I try to motivate people and get them to change and things like that.
Absolutely.
Keno is what I was called in school, and I have a whole cohort of people in my career who only know me as BJ and not Brian, right? So I just came up with that
The two.
BJ Keno motivation, and it worked for me. It's a personal thing. It's a bit of an internal joke. If
Yeah.
they check that
Love
out,
it.
they see all the places that I've spoken to, radio stations I've been on to try to get the message across. And obviously, if they want
Percent.
to come and talk to me, I'd be delighted to talk.
Absolutely. So make sure that those links are going to be in the notes. So make sure you check them out. Anyone who's watching this thing. Brian, once again, thank you so much for chatting to me.
Thanks for having me, James. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for accepting my request to come on, because I've been a big fan for a
100%.
long time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if it resonated, share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment or ask a question, and let's keep the conversation going. I the podcast where we explore purpose, passion, and the moments that truly matter. I'm James.